Actually, you are right. We should. All right. This will be recorded, and we will post it on the VAC YouTube.
Great, thanks.
So it'll be available. Thanks for reminding me. That's always something that I forget to do.
Yeah, I forgot to.
It's still asking me for permission.
Oh no, Damien is recording it. If you look on the right-hand corner there, it says record.
Oh, okay.
It's recording.
All right.
All right.
And you'll send out the address for how to access that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Will do. Hold on one second here.
This looks like.
All right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All righty.
Greetings, this is Ed Valentine. I want to share with you the products that I use to polish my Bambi. First, I start out with the Diamond Bright truck polish. I'll go over the camper with that, the section that I'm doing. Once I finish with that, I move on to the Bush aluminum polish, Super Shine aluminum polish, and at which point then I apply the Mother's mag and aluminum polish. This was recommended to me by a fellow down in South Carolina. He uses the same three, and I was very impressed with the polish that he had on his camper, and he shared with me this is his sequence, and that's what I've been using. I do not use a buff or anything. I do it manually. Very slow, time consuming, but it works out pretty nice because it's the kind of shine I want on my Bambi.
Manually?
I don't have any shoulders left after doing all that.
Wow, Ed, you are a glutton for punishment.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not easy with a machine either, but manually?
Well, what I do is my wife and I are both retired, so I said, I need to go outside. I got to go polish the camper. So it takes a long time. So I'm just polishing the camper all day.
Go ahead, honey, take your time.
Take your time. Hey, the camper needs to be polished. So what happened was when I got my Bambi, I got my Bambi in South Carolina, and it was really very oxidated. It was quite oxidated. So I met a fellow while I was down there that they were doing they didn't have a Bambi. I think it was a bubble. They had a bubble. And I asked them because it didn't have that nickel polish, and I really did like that. I didn't want mine to get a nickel polish. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I think they're very nice, but that's not what I wanted for the Bambi. So he introduced me to the three products. So the first one, I think you saw it. I don't know whether you can see it. I'm trying to hold it up. Is the Diamond Bright truck polish, truck box polish. It just polishes aluminum, and I use that. First, I wash down the camper, of course, and I use that to get most of the stuff off of it. And it's really light to put on. It works really well, but it doesn't give it the sheen I'm looking for. So then he recommended, of course, the Bush one. I don't know whether you guys can see that.
Put it in front of you. I think you can see it if it's right in front of you, Ed.
Oh,
there you go.
There you go.
So this is the one that he recommends. This is the first one, of course, that I use, which is the diamond one. Then I use this one. This one I had to order from North Carolina. You can't find it in the stores. It works really very well, but it still doesn't get me where I want to get to. So then I finally use Mother's. And this you can buy in any auto. Let's see if I could do this.
Mother's aluminum polish?
Mag and aluminum polish, yes.
Okay.
And that's what I finish it off with. It takes me a little while because I'm going over it quite a bit. And I use dish towels. I don't use anything special, just dish towels. I do buy brand new ones. And I go over it, and it does a pretty decent job. Again, I'm not looking for a nickel polish. I'm looking for a sheen polish. And I'm trying to get it as close as possible. We had to replace one of the aluminum siding panels. So I'm trying to get it as close to that as possible because that I think is fair. And that's how I do mine. But it's a lot of work because I do it manually. Takes time. But I'm getting the results that I like too. So that's what I'm happy about. The reason why I don't use a buffer, guys, is I'm afraid that it's not going to come out even, that I'm going to get marks all over it. And I saw one individual do that and I didn't like the way it came out. And I said, I'm not going to do that. So I know we got some people on the call today that have done it and are very good at it. So I want to learn from it, because maybe as I'm getting older, this is just getting a little too tiresome for me. But
So Ed, one thing that is a recommendation, if people want to have that big high shine polish, and even it doesn't need to be the high shine, is there are places throughout the country, California has some good ones. I'm not sure, Colorado probably does. And that's to pay somebody to do it, but that's pretty pricey. It's about $160 to $140 a foot of the trailer. And they include everything, the total length from the hitch to the trailer or the bumper, even though that's not all of it. And it's a lot of work, but if you want to save, anybody wants to save that amount of huge labor up front, that is the way to do it. The problem is you've inherently made a make work project to try and keep it clean all the time, which is the bad thing about having a polished trailer, is it's a lot of work to maintain it. It's a maintenance pig.
Yeah, mine was, before I bought it, the previous owners had taken it to, I think, with Hollywood, I don't know, trailer restoration or something in California. There was a California couple. And for the trailer and replacing one of the side panels where the heater vent came out, and they didn't want that there anymore. So they replaced that panel, and to shine the tanks, 2 fairly large propane tanks, was $5,000.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
not cheap,
wow.
but it saves
it
about
was-
a lot of work.
It was gorgeous. I mean, it's getting dull now, so I'm trying to figure out how to take it back to where it was.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Wow.
It doesn't stay.
Well, I called the people out in Ohio when I first got the Bambi, because I was, I wanted to get it shined up really quickly, and they were charging $200 a square foot.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
It's not a linear foot, it's a square foot, because a lot of them I've heard is just based on a linear foot.
No, I think it was square foot is what they priced it for, and I was like, I can do this myself. I mean, it was just expensive, and I saw their
Well,
work. Their work
A
is very-
Bambi, the Bambis are small, and it's worth it to try. If you have the wherewithal to do it, the strength, and you have the time, it's worth it to try it yourself. It's a good learning.
The one in the
camper to
back, the one that I have here in my background, that one is a 25 footer. That one I probably would not try to do. That's,
No.
no, that's too much work. But you learn a lot when you do it too. There were places when I'm polishing it that I find some stuff that's not right that I want to fix, or the skin. It gives me time to really look at it and inspect it, if you want to call it that.
Sorry, quick question. I'm wondering if anyone has a tip on how to get the roof done. That seems like the trickiest, hardest part.
The what?
The roof.
The rust.
The roof.
Oh yeah, the roof is difficult. I mean, you can put in scaffolding. Like, one of the things you may want to use, you get those ladders, like
What are those fancy ladders?
and they come apart 20 different ways, and they can separate, so you can have essentially two small ladders, and they have a scaffolding that goes in between. So the taller of a ladder that you get, the higher you can get on those, and you can work on them that way. Myself, I try to get to the points that you can see, up by the air conditioner and stuff where the vents are. It's like, you know what? I'm just not going to go there. It's just too much work to get too high, and nobody will see it anyway.
Yeah, just as a point of reference, ours is a 20 footer, and that $5,000 was for the 20 foot thing, and they didn't do the top. They went up to the awning level and then left the actual top, and then they seam sealed up there, which seems fine. Unless you're 8 feet tall, you're not going to see the top anyway. So as long as it's a nice clean line where you left off for the roof, it seems fine to me. I have no complaint.
Lisa, I think that's
And then some people are painting their upper total top roof. They're painting it white because it reflects better and the trailer stays cooler.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, because it seems like painting them like the modern trailers is maybe a better way to go.
Now, I heard of an outfit, I think they're out of California, that they travel around the country and they will polish your trailer. I mean, I called them up once, but it was a little flaky for me. I wasn't too sure about it. I didn't want to pay for something I wasn't sure about. But I did hear that there's a group of people that actually travel around the country and they will polish a trailer.
I've heard of those too.
You know, again, it was a little too flaky for me. I wasn't sure, and they were reasonable. I mean, it wasn't $200 a square foot. It was a lot less. But you get what you pay for. So I was concerned. A little concerned about it. But that's what I use, and I find it to be. It's worked out well. It's not that expensive because I have checked online, and some of these polishes are very expensive. And it's like, wow, okay. And I figured I can find these. The only one that was the Bush's one that I had to order from North Carolina, but the others I can find in local stores without an issue. And I had to buy a case, by the way, from the people from North Carolina. They wouldn't sell me one or two, so I ended up with 12.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to be polishing my camper for a long time.
That's good.
So here's another suggestion on that. I was going to talk about a little bit of this one on my video, but Vintage Trailer Supply, they're in someplace upper state New York, but they also relocated just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico recently, and it's a mail order place. And they do a lot of the Nuvite type aircraft polishes, and I think it's changed names, but you can get as many as you want or as few as you want in different volumes of the polish. And there's like 3 or 4 different, there's a coarse, there's a medium, and there's a soft fine. And you can buy some of the buffers from them directly. I have a couple of these buffers that I bought, and they're cyclo buffers, and I bought them online. They're used, but even the used ones, they hold up very well. And if it doesn't work as you want it, you can send these buffers to the cyclo people, and they'll refurbish them for a very, very reasonable price. So that's what I use. They're a little heavy, but there's all sorts of different ones that people use. Some people like the angle grinder type, the rotaries, and they use the thicker pads in a, say, like a vertical, like that. I can't see it. Okay, about like thick. Anyway, they do it.
We have a video of that we can show later.
Okay, that, and then they also do it sideways in kind of a big buffing scenario. So there's a lot of different ways, but Vintage Trailer Supply, they've done a lot for the vintage trailer community, and you can get the stuff from them too.
That's what I was planning on. I bought a couple of different grits, and I didn't want to spring for the, I don't know, $400 or $500 super duper one. So I bought a less expensive one that has the double buffers on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I haven't tried it yet, but they have really good description of how you take it from scratch or just a rebuff. And
yeah,
that's a great website. They're really.
And then the one thing you do not want to do when you're buffing using these machineries, you want to keep them moving all the time, so you don't just focus in one place, because you can actually burn the aluminum.
Right.
A friend of mine bought a trailer that had been done, and it has like the angle grinder type buffing that you may have been looking at, and it came out and looked like a tiger stripe because it had so many burn marks. And we tried and could not get those burn marks out of his trailer.
I think it actually affects the alloy in some way.
Yeah.
It heats up the alloy and changes the chemistry of the alloy.
That could be.
And that was my concern about using any of that, because I would look at some of these trailers and they were buffed in the wrong way. They just didn't look right. And I think it was individuals that just focused on one section and just stayed on there, and it just didn't look right. And I didn't want to do that. I said, I'll just do this manually. But if you know what you're doing, obviously it works out well. How expensive are they? Some of these grinders and all that. Are they very expensive?
Well, you can get some a relatively disposable one at Harbor Freight, and you can buy one of those, and they're probably $30. I have a big Milwaukee that I tried. I just did a little bit, but it's too fast. Makita has some. The Milwaukee one was basically I guess it's just a rotary, like angle grinder stuff. So you can put things to cut, but you don't necessarily want a real high speed one. The cyclos, you can get them a new one for 500 or a one on eBay for 200 and 175, and it has a lot of the attachments, which is what I did. I paid, I think, 200 for that years ago. So I think you just need to do some shopping and see what works best.
Yeah, the one I got from, I think it was from Vintage Trailer, from Trailer Supply, was the double one, and it didn't have the metal, all the metal exterior to it, but I mean, it seems same speed and all that kind of, and I think it was about 100 and a quarter, 100 and a half.
Yeah. Was that a Cyclo by chance?
No, it was based on the Cyclo,
Okay.
but it uses a plastic exterior shell. It's not a professional, it's more of a home version of the same thing.
Okay.
Any questions that I can answer, products that I'm using, or do we want to move on to the next video? Okay, Damien, I think we're ready for the next video.
Well, the next video is from Lisa. So if Lisa, you want to give an introduction or something?
Oh, sure. Rod and I filmed this yesterday. We happened to have our trailer here, and he was cleaning it up from our last vacation. And he had all the polishing equipment out, and I knew we were going to do a polishing chat today. So I said, well, let me get the phone and we'll just, so we have about 5-minute video here showing you the ABCs of polishing a video. So enjoy.
Polishing a trailer.
I mean, of polishing a trailer.
We're going to polish up on the video.
Sorry. You knew what I was talking about.
All right. All right, here we go.
Good evening. My name is Rodney Sly, and I've been working to get it polished up again. There's several things I use that I like. This is a Cyclo buffer. You can get them on eBay. You can buy them new for about $400. Get them on eBay for maybe $2. And then I like the Nuvite, which is a polisher that even the Air Force uses. This is an S, which means this will put on the final shine if you really want a real high shine. This is a C, which is coarse. So if you're taking out big scratches and such, you may want to start with this, which is C, then move down to an F7. F7 is my favorite. It's kind of an all-around great buffing compound. So you see that's gray, and the white is the fine. Coarse is gray, but a little darker. Be prepared to use a lot of these synthetic microfiber rags. You can see they get pretty dirty. And after I do a buffing, I like to use denatured alcohol, any kind. Get it at Home Depot for, I don't know, $6 a can of this stuff, because it gets rid of all of the residue when you're after you finish polishing something. And let's start with this. So this is also, right now, this is a set of rags that you can buy from the Cyclo company. They can be re-washed. These have been probably washed 2 or 3 times. After 2 or 3 times, I'll get some new ones and start out. Now another guy, he's down in Florida, I can't remember his name, but he goes to, I guess, the Salvation Army or some of these other places, and he buys old 100% cotton robes, and he cuts them up into squares like this, and each one of these squares is where, or each one of these holes is where it fits through the handle of the Cyclo. So I will put on a new place for this thing, and then we'll go from there. Stop. One of the products I forgot to mention, and again, this is Nuvite, and this comes in a little, I guess this is like 16 ounces or something, and it's a cleaner, debugger, and polishes polished metal. So what this does is, after I get home and the trailer's dirty, I wash it and I try to get all the bugs off. Lighter fluid works great to get some of the bugs off. There's several other things, but this is kind of the finished thing that I like to use when I do the debugger. Now this is the Nuvite with the rag. I just showed you how it was in quarters. It goes through one of those holes on the handle, wraps around, and you put it in a nice little man bun maybe. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a quick buff on one of the panels, and then I'll show you how that works. So you always like to do some of the buffing in a cool, dry area if you have. If you work in the sun, this stuff dries up pretty fast, and I've never worked in the sun because it's too hot, and then you get some of these solar rays from the trailer and it will cook you, literally. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a little F7, going to do a little small piece of this side. It's already pretty good. I've done some debugging, but all you have to do is it doesn't take much. You get a little bit on your fingertips like that, put a couple little daubs, wrap the rest of it on a new clean rag, and then you kind of smear it around here, and then you work. You don't want to use a lot of it, because a little bit goes a long, long way. You want to continue moving. You do not want to stay in one place because you will burn the side of the aluminum, which is very difficult to get out if you can get out. So you just want to continue moving. And that little bit should pretty much come out. And I usually will continue to do this until all of this, you can see some cloudy areas, which is actually some of the nuvite. And it will take out very minor scratches, but you don't want to work in any place very long because you will burn the aluminum, which is not good. So if you use a little bit, you can see most of this nuvite cleaner is off. So I'll turn that off, and now you can see how much residue you get from the trailer. Most of this black stuff is some of the aluminum oxide that's coming off. So the next step here is I'll show you what I do after I do this. So what I just buffed with was this F7. It's kind of a medium grade. So there's still some residue up here that you want to get out. I don't know if she can show you that, but it gets around the rivets and everything else. But my finishing on a lot of this was I'd probably go down to an F, that fine grade, which is a soft, but put a little bit of alcohol and just start rubbing where you had just buffed. Now you might want to do this 2 or 3 times depending on how shiny your trailer is or not, because it takes a long time to get it to this real pretty finish. And you can see here, that's just some of the residue from the alcohol. Do that a couple times. Get all of the places that you were, that you buffed. Turn it around to the drier side. And just get that alcohol in there. It may take a couple times to get it, but as you can see, it shines up pretty good. But it was shiny.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. One other thing that I forgot to mention in some of this stuff is you don't put a lot of pressure on the buffing machine. You just kind of hold it up there and let it do its own thing, and kind of just don't stay in one place. You want to move it around so you don't build up the heat. You can do smaller. So I try to do, probably 2 by 3 feet panel wise. And it takes quite a while, so it's a never-ending process. So when we get home from a trip, I'll wash it up, and then, okay, haven't done this one in a while, so you work on one. So it's a project that never ends. So if you want a shiny trailer, you better be willing to put in a lot of time keeping it that way.
What temperature is
What was that alcohol that you used? You what's the name of the alcohol? And you picked it up.
It's just a denatured alcohol is all it is. And it's similar to the alcohol that you can buy, like pharmaceutical alcohol, just a regular alcohol. And it comes in cans. You can get it at the paint shops at Home Depot, just regular, it says denatured alcohol. You could also use some good gin or vodka.
What do you wash your trailer with before you do this? What do you use on your trailer?
I use just a car wash. I think I've got like a McGuire's car wash because you get the suds in there. And I kind of screwed up when we went on a rally in Salem, and I didn't have any car wash with me. I just used water and a soft rag. But I usually use like one of those. It's just a car wash rag, and I use McGuire's or any kind of car wash because it gives it a little bit of a slip. Now I've also got one of those extendable, you can get these at AutoZone. It has kind of a real soft brush on it and extends up a ways. And I use that now as just a rinse and initially put some water on there. And I also bought as an experiment this last week, another thing from AutoZone, and it doesn't have water through it, but it's one of those kind of a blue raggy thing, and it extends, so I don't need to get up on a ladder as much anymore. And you can just use that and then rinse it with the bristle brush that a hose hooks up to it. And then I dry it off with just cotton towels.
Thank you. Any questions for Lisa and her husband?
What temperature works good for polishing? Is there a range in there?
Well, I always try to do it in the shade. I do it in the summertime too, but I try to do it in the morning or in the afternoon or any time the trailer is actually in the shade. I think that works. The cooler the temperature, you know, it's just cooler on you. You know, if it's 100 degrees out and it's still on the shady side, it's still pretty toasty. So I just work in the shade. And I have one of these little plastic tables. I think you saw that in there. So instead of putting the towels on the cyclo buffer on the ground, I put it on the table, and then I also just put a big towel on that because it gets pretty dirty. I'm pretty dirty, you know, hands wise and everything else. Once you're finished doing this for an hour and a half, you get dirty. So it's a dirty job.
Thanks.
And did I hear you say you could wash those towels that you're buffing with and use them maybe 3 times? Did I get that right?
Yeah, actually, this one that I was just using, it's probably been washed twice, and I just threw it in the washer. And I don't know if my wife appreciates some of that. It's kind of grimy. I just put it on the strong cycle, and I threw all of those rags in, and it still has spots. It doesn't clean them out 100%, but it gets most of the grime out, and I would reuse them.
I have a question. When we bought our 55, they did like a first cut polish on it to see what kind of scrapes and that kind of thing were underneath all the oxidation, and cleanup was not really done. And so my job has been trying to get the old polish that's baked on around the rivets for years off. Can anybody give me any idea what I need to do I mean, I don't even care if the rivets look shiny and the rest of it doesn't at this point. All I need to do is get that black off.
So have you tried lighter fluid and the denatured alcohol? That works pretty good.
Even
you know,
on the
I
old-
don't mind if there's still a little black. I mean, it takes a lot of work to get a lot of the stuff off, and that's a problem when they didn't take the wax off, because that gets tough. We did some of the inside of our trailer, and we didn't clean it off right away, and it just makes that job a whole lot tougher. But you might try some of that, or what's that, goof off, or what'd you use to clean off the paint on the inside?
Oh, I don't think I used anything. That was paint, not oxidation.
Yeah, but it might help.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
We've tried mineral spirits, and
We lost you.
But
My goodness.
Ed, can you?
there's a
We can't hear you.
temperature, but then the temperature gets too. Internet. Okay,
You might
hold on,
have to-
let me turn my video off. Maybe that'll help.
Can you
This-
hear us?
Yeah, now we can hear you. You cut out there for a minute.
Yeah, we tried mineral spirits and it worked, but we found that there's a temperature that's about 60 to 80 degrees. It works, but anything above or below that, it won't cut it.
But it's coming off so slow. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
he's rebuilt cabinets, and I'm still working on a panel to get that black stuff off the rivets, and it's so frustrating because it's not something we created, but we're stuck with.
Well, the thing about mineral spirits too is that you almost have to, once you're done with mineral spirits, you almost have to go over that with a alcohol, because it will leave kind of just a dull residue on it as well. But just try some, I guess, try some of the alcohol or some goof off or lighter fluid, and maybe Q-tips. You might go through a few of those, but it may get in and around the rivets a little bit.
Now, the ends of my fingernails have gotten very soft working around those rivets, but I'm going to try the denatured alcohol, and then the next one of these things that we have, I might have to revisit that question again, but
You know, I wonder, Ed, you tried that that aluminum polish that you can get at the auto parts store. You know, you might just try. It's probably, I don't know, $6 to $10 for different kind of products just to try it.
Yeah, I haven't used Mother's on it, but I do have some of that just because of other I did like a folding lawn chair. I polished it with some of those polishes.
thank you very much for your help. I appreciate that. 'Cause it's
You know,
been
one
my
other thing-
job, and it's a lot. Thank
One other
you.
thing you might try is to get one of those buff. I think they fit on like a 1/4-inch drill or something like that, and they use them to clean in and out of some mag wheels and stuff. You might try some of that and just don't put a lot of pressure on it. And it's fit on the end of a drill, and a variable speed drill would be maybe better because you don't have it at a high speed, just to try a different product like that.
Okay. Do it somewhere it's either down low or up high where I can't see it too well.
Yeah, start out in the places you can't see.
Yeah.
I know this is a no-no, and I know it, guys, and I'm gonna probably not sound like a real nice guy about this, but I power wash both my trailers. And when I get to the rivets, I really get in there for two reasons. I do it because I want to clean everything right out, and another is it will tell me if it's leaking. When you put a power wash on there, it will tell you if you're leaking. And I had some stubborn rivets that were quite dirty, and I tried everything. Finally, I said, I'm taking a power wash too, and I did. Put it on there, and I kept it at a nice angle and cleaned it right out. But it cleans everything. It will clean everything. But I know they do not recommend using power washes on the Airstreams. I know that. But I've done it, and I actually do it every year. I power wash both trailers.
I
we
power
were-
wash as well. You just,
You
as
do
long as you're
yours
careful. As long as you're careful.
as long as you're careful, yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I've done is, and I might, now I've got Argosy it's painted, but I get tree sap and crud and around the rivets that you can't get out. And what I've done on that is I'll take a toothbrush with some polishing compound, and then I can work right around that rivet in a very small, very well controlled area. And I found that works pretty well.
Yeah.
Now denatured alcohol is actually it's more potent than rubbing alcohol, and it actually will burn, and they use it as a fuel. But you get that. That's a very good cleaner. I also have used lacquer thinner to clean aluminum before.
Yep.
So.
And there's several other, I'm trying to think of what some of the other ones would, but I would, if I used a toothbrush, I'd probably, they make them in hard, medium, soft. I'd go for the soft ones.
Well, it depends on how hard. The hard one will give you a little more. If you're using a polishing compound with it, then the compound is actually what you're wanting to use.
Yeah.
So maybe a medium or just experiment with it. Mineral spirits tends to leave a residue, which is why I would tend to not use it. And it's not as potent as alcohol or lacquer thinner.
No, it's not very pleasant, but it is what I was given to use. So I will try the denatured alcohol. I appreciate all your help and not judging me for using the wrong stuff, but
Maybe you
yeah.
just need to use the tequila.
Yeah.
But if you're using
And
denatured
if you get
alcohol,
frustrated, you just start drinking.
yeah, no, you can't drink it because it's poisonous.
No, we were talking about tequila.
Do be aware that it is flammable. Don't smoke around it or have it near any open flame because it is flammable.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very flammable, quite
I don't-
flammable, actually.
I don't smoke, but I will drink the tequila.
You need the gin to drink while you're using the denatured alcohol to clean.
Just don't mix the containers. Now, trial and error, there is, you don't learn unless you try it. And, I have a little spot on my trailer that I tried to get a little too aggressive on. And, I've got a little, we have our problems. Little hot spot there.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, we actually had the Seal Tech test done on our trailer, and it was amazing. I would so recommend that. The amount and number of bubbles, even you could even tell how big the leak was based on how big the bubbles got. It was an amazing experience, and now we have a bunch of sealing to do before we go back and try it again to find what's really there.
Yeah, someone needs to bring one of those to a rally and they could make a fortune.
I'd be afraid to even look at ours. Ours breathes real well, I think. Especially on our door. I think the door was kind of tweaked at one time, and just to try and get a good seal on that door. At nighttime you can turn the outside light on. You can see some air around the door.
Wow. I know that we're focusing on polishing, but I'm also curious on, I know you guys, Lisa, you guys have shared what you use for washing. What do you guys use? I wash my trailers at least twice a year. I try to do it at, beginning of the summer and the end of the summer. Do any of you wash your trailers, and what do you use to wash them?
Well, this is Rodney, and I use just a regular car wash, and I wash it after every trip that we come back on. Wow. Lisa, do you help? Well,
I'm washing the inside.
but it doesn't take too long. Like I said, I have one of those brush attachments that you get at AutoZone, and it's probably, I don't know, about 8 inches wide, and it has a bunch of soft bristles. I used that initially, but now after I just started, I was doing a lot of hand washing with those big blue fiber kind of gloves that you put on, and it looks like Rasta hair all over it with blue, and started doing that. But this last time I bought one of these extendable, it's that same blue material that you can get on a hand washing glove. You put it on, it's a big floppy thing, and I just get it all wet with the one that's an extendable hose essentially, and then wet it down, and then I have a big 5-gallon bucket, and I fill it up with water and car wash solution, and it works pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'll use it. But I got a scaffold now, so I will get on the scaffold, get all over the back of it. But what I do use to wash it with is dishwashing liquid.
Oh, that's good too.
Fill it up and boom, and I go on it and do it. But I like the idea of doing it every trip I make, because every trip that I do take, because I think that it just gets dirty. It just gets dirty.
Bugs.
It's the bugs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the bugs and just
tar.
dirt.
Yeah.
Right. But I have seen some.
I don't do my belly pan. I leave my belly pan go on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I do much with that. But I have seen some trailers that can really use a good cleaning. It looks like they've never been washed.
On the inside and outside.
Yeah. Anybody else? Does anybody else use anything different? No. And of course, I use a power. I do power wash. Any other points? I don't think we have any other videos, do we, Damien?
We have the one from Levon from YouTube.
Laban Register.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he uses kind of that rotary technique, but you got to be really, really careful with that because that'll burn fast. And that's a friend of mine's trailer he bought, and it looked great on the inside. And when got it out, it looked like a tiger.
Well, we can watch that a little bit. Is it very long?
It's about 10 minutes.
Yeah, why don't we watch it? You guys, I mean, I have not seen it, so it'd be nice to.
Levon also tends to bring out, I think he's the one, and brings out some moonshine every now and then at some of the big rallies. He tries to hide it, but he hides it for everybody. Pretty good stuff too.
All right.
This is a side grinder, 3,000 RPM. You have to have at least 3,000 RPM. Do not go over 4,000. This is a gray bar, which will be the first cut. This is after you've gotten all of your clear coat off, and you want to tape up any of your molding that you don't want to get this material on. It's harder to get off. After we use this wheel, we'll go to this bar, which is a finishing jeweler's ruse type, and we'll use a different wheel with it because you don't want to contaminate them. And then the final polish will be this metal armor, and we'll put it on with the Cyclo. And in between each step, we'll also use mineral spirits to clean it off. And I usually buy just a 8-pound box of rags from Lowe's and find the ones that'll fit the Cyclo. There are many ways to polish. This is the way that I found that it's the quickest for me. The previous method, it was taking me 250 hours to do a 25-foot trailer. Now it takes approximately 100 hours. I have two, since we're using two different types of polishes and you don't want to contaminate them, I have two side grinders so I don't have to continually change out the wheels. But if you just have one, you need to do the gray bar and pick you out a section, maybe just the end cap or side piece, roughly 3 feet by 4 feet or so, and concentrate on that for one day. It's going to take about 2.5 hours to do one. And once you do the gray and you're satisfied with the gray, then you'll have to take your pad off and put your other pad on, which would do the red. This particular trailer is an 85 model, and the aluminum they used in it, they don't have as much pure aluminum as the 50s and 60s and even the 40 model trailers. This is more of a brush look, and you have to get rid of that brush look in order for it to really shine. And what we're doing with this particular method is we're putting vertical lines in the aluminum rather than just swirls, and the vertical lines are easier to remove. As you make your pass across through here, you're going to go over rivets. It's going to put polish on the other side of the rivets. We want to make sure we remove all that polish at each step. And you want to overlap each time. And as you're doing this, you can see beneath what you might have missed. And there's where you save a lot of time from another method. When the pad starts getting a little bit cloggy, that's when you go and rake it so that it'll pick up this material and take it off. We have a rake here that we're going to rake this wheel to break it up, to make it soft. You do that every day before you start, and you also do it while this is getting clogged up a little bit. As you take off the minerals, using mineral spirits, you'll be able to tell after it dries if you need to go back with the gray bar anymore. And I can see I've got a little bit of haze in here that I want to get out, and a couple of spots I missed there, so I'm going to go over it one more time with the gray bar. I've just gone over with the gray twice in this area because I found some areas that I needed to go over it again. But you can visibly see what you've missed as you use this type of method. Now I'm going to, after taking the mineral spirits and using that, and it's a clean surface, now I'm going to use the other bar, which is the finishing bar, and this is a fairly new pad, and it'll take a little while for it to start getting a little blacker and holding the material better. You don't need to put a lot of material on there at a time, just enough to get it on there and go across 3 or 4 times. What I'm doing with this bar is there's vertical lines that I can barely see, and I want to make them smaller, and that's what we're doing, is get them smaller so that the cyclo can completely erase them. Now that we've got the red bar that was on there, we want to clean the area again. Now, this method will get most all of your pitting out unless it's very deep or deep scratches. It'll minimize the deep scratches and some of the pitting, but it won't get all of the pitting out in a trailer or in the aluminum. All right, now we're ready to put some of the finished polishing on. Now we're getting ready to put a final polish on, and these rags I get from Lowe's, they come in different sizes out of that bag. They're just painting rags, but they're cotton, and that's what you want. You want to make sure you don't cover up your ventilation for your cyclo. and you don't put but about roughly about a nickel or quarter's worth of material on there to do this process. I'm going to put another one on here just to pick up some more of that material quicker. And some people at the end like to use a micro cloth and that also will pick up any material left behind. You can see what the amount of material it picked up around your rivets and that kind of thing. Because you're using a high-speed 3,000 or 4,000 RPM tool, you want to make sure you wear long sleeve shirts, leather gloves, eye protection. You should wear some type of breathing protection. I'm out in the strong wind out here today is the reason I didn't have it on. And the reason you wear your long sleeves is if that wheel touches you, it will peel your skin pretty rough. So it is a nasty, dirty job, but you have to be very safe when you're doing it because it is dangerous. This side of the trailer's pretty much had its first cut. Some of it has had the cyclo used on it. The majority of it hasn't. And some people even leave it without cyclo in it and it still has a fairly good appearance.
Hope that wasn't too long.
No, it wasn't too long, but it was involved.
One important thing to take away from that, I've done a lot of metal polishing over the years, not necessarily Airstream trailers, but other things, is if you're using a buffing wheel, use it only with one abrasive because you'll never get other abrasives out. If you have used a coarse abrasive and try to use a fine on it, you'll scratch the have some of that coarse abrasive in there. So a suggestion on the cyclo is if you're reusing like the rags that Ron was using, mark those with a permanent marker and only use those with one specific grit. That way even though you wash them, you may never get all of that abrasive out. That way you're only using a fine grit on a cloth that's used to fine grit.
I don't know about you guys, but wow, that was much more intense than I would ever want to do, and that's industrial grade polishing, it seems to me. So
you can tell he's done it a lot.
That was
but using an angle grinder like that, you can burn that really fast.
Yeah. That's the type of polisher this friend's bought, and I think the guy tried to put on a too quick of a polish, and I don't think he went through the care that Levon does, and that's where he got his tiger stripes on his. And we've been to several rallies, and Levon has done some restoration rallies, and Levon has been there, and he knows how to do it. He's done a lot of them, and I've never seen a bad polish that Levon did. But again, you need to be real careful not to burn those trailers and put too much weight on them.
If you put too much pressure on and you have too coarse a grit, you will scratch it, and then you've got a ton of work trying to get those scratches out.
Right.
And he obviously knows what he's doing. He's done a ton of these, but think doing that for 100 to 200 hours.
And he just did that real small little part, and that probably took
Right.
him a half hour.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, earlier, just to switch focus a little bit. Earlier, I mentioned that I had bought a different kind of a scaled down version of the Cyclo version. So that's what this is. This is 1600 to 3500 RPM twin with the Velcro on it, so that you can put pads on there. And it's Custom Shop is the brand. And this was Vintage Trailers again, and it comes with different types of pads. Again, with the Velcro on the back, and then the finishing steps would be with, the cotton, big cotton cloths. And what I'd heard was pick up a bunch of old T-shirts or something, or if you have T-shirts sitting around, yeah, there were, as long as they're 100% cotton, those would work fine. Anyway, that's what I got.
Now, is that one also a random kind of, or is it just go one cycle, or does it kind of move around?
I have not used it, but it looks to be a random.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me, because it's not, each pad is not centered exactly. So I've never actually used it. But anyway, oh yeah, it is, definitely is random.
Yeah. So it may be, after the patents on the Cyclos went out, another company went and kind of made one slightly different that probably works just as good.
Yeah, what I'd heard at the time, and this was like a year ago, was that Cyclo is going out of business. Is that correct? Or that they were not going to make them anymore?
No, they're still making them. And actually I had one, and they just sent me a new one because I had an older one that was very rare. There was only like 10 of them. And so it was actually made for a massage. It was a massage thing by Cyclo. They made like 10 of them, and they didn't have one. So I said, I'd be happy to donate it to the Cyclo folks, to their museum outside of just outside of Denver. And they sent me a brand new Cyclo.
Well, maybe you could use the massage one after you've done a couple hours of the polishing.
I think back in the 50s, they actually had a lawsuit because it was a little rough. Instead of burning the aluminum, they burned the skin. So I guess there was a lawsuit, and they made like 10 of them, I think. And so I ended up buying one for $60 at an Airstream swap meet. It didn't have enough torque to do my trailer. So I sent it to those guys, and they said, well, this is what it is. And so I said, well, I don't want it. It won't work. I said, you guys can have it, because it sounded like it was rare. And he sent me all this information, and I sent that to them. And, a couple weeks later, I got a brand new Cyclo.
Wow. Well, here's the stuff that from the Trailer Supply. It's air bright, and with all the different grits. I think it's roughly the same as the stuff that you were talking about earlier. And this is the super fine. That's how risky I wanted to be, was I'm going with super fine before I even touch anything else. And you can always make it more coarse, but you can't make it less coarse once you bend the other direction. So
right.
Anyway, this is what I got from Trailer Supply.
And it's very similar to the new VAC products.
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of grit and everything, I think.
Yep.
So is it safe to say that it would take 100, 250 hours? I mean, that's what he said it took him before. Now it takes him 100 hours to do a trailer. I mean,
he was talking about a 28-foot trailer would be about 100 hours using that.
Yeah.
Which I wonder how does he get up against the molding, and how does he have to hand do that?
Right.
Yeah, that's the tough part, because I've got some areas that, it's just difficult to use. And I bought some of these round pads, and they're they're probably about a 1/4 inch wide. They fit on the end of a drill, and you can use those, or a, what do you call it? One of those little small Dremel tool. You can use them on that too. But it's tougher when you get around the nooks, and also even around drip rails, light areas. I mean, you can pull those things off pretty quick with a grinder.
Yeah.
So that's just more hand time, I think.
Yeah. Wow. So, any questions? Any?
Well, a quick question. Since they changed the composition of the aluminum, I don't know when they did that exactly. Was that in the 70s that they switched to and then started putting the clear coat on them?
Probably about the time Beatrice bought Airstream, which would have been around 70, 71.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do they, so they changed the actual alloy that they use?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I also know that I've heard, and our trailer's been in some hailstorms, light ones, not the newer, the 56, but a friend of mine's had his 65 for a long time, and the grade and the thickness of the aluminum in the older trailers is much thicker, so they don't get as dented in a hailstorm as the newer ones do. However, anytime the hail comes up, it just scares the tar out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to agree with that because my 85 was in a hailstorm and it got damaged quite a bit. And my 61, I've driven it through some hailstorms and it's done fairly well. Fairly well.
Diane Bailey is one of the members. She's in one of the units I'm in. She has a 1948 Wee Wind. And we were camping at the Texas Vintage Rally about 4 years ago. And a piece of tree branch, probably 2 or 3 inches in diameter and about 2 or 3 feet, fell out and hit the back of her trailer and put a big dent in the curve section right along where the seam was. And they were able to just go in and pop that back out, and you can't ever tell it was ever dented. Or on a newer trailer, that would have stretched the metal to where you would be working that for weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
The moral of the story is to avoid any hailstorms or tree branches.
Or buy an older trailer.
Yeah.
Makes me glad I live in the Pacific Northwest. Not a lot of hailstorms out here.
We get lots of hailstorms in Texas.
New Mexico too. And if you're on the road, boy.
Yeah.
And my RSC, the whole top of my RSC has little dimples in it, but you can't really, as long as it's clean, you don't see where the dirt's collected in them.
There was a trailer that came to the Balloon Fiesta Rally a few years ago, and it looked like an aluminum golf ball. It had, I guess it hit some major size hail, and you felt bad for the people, but it was kind of a cool effect. I don't think I'd want it.
Tell them to paint it green and call it a pickle.
There you go.
Yeah, I ran into a storm front in Montana once upon a time. Everybody's got horror stories like this, but ran into a storm front and in a Chevy step van I'd made into a kind of a quasi motorhome 50 years ago, and broke both the windshields. Both sides. I could see it coming. I thought, God, that's a weird looking cloud. What is that anyway?
That's hail.
Yeah,
a wall of it. Even I've even got hail dents in the tops of the steel caps on my Argus.
Yeah.
Wow.
And those are very, very thick steel.
Wow.
They had a hailstorm in New Mexico down by Socorro, gosh, probably 5 years ago, and I guess the hail was almost the size of like a baseball. They said it was.
Yeah,
huge.
we get baseball size sometimes.
Yeah, tore everything up, and they were happy that school hadn't let out because that would have killed the kids.
Right.
Got whacked by some of that.
We have had baseball size hail here where it literally went through the roof, through the attic, through the ceiling, and damaged furniture.
Yeah.
Wow.
That probably would have put a dent in your trailer too.
A friend of mine had a vintage pickup truck. It broke all the windows out, and it had fist-sized dents in the roof, and that was like a 50s Chevy with really thick steel. So it's possible to get some really, really bad hail.
Yeah, that's scary stuff.
Yeah, sometimes we get tornadoes to go with that.
We're staying home this winter and we're getting the big trailer done. It has a lot of hail damage, so they're replacing the skin on the front.
Oh, good. Good. That'll look nice.
Who's doing that?
I didn't ask them for a price. I just said, just get it done.
Close your eyes.
Is that a Dent Masters that you have to do that? dent removal, like Dent Masters or something?
Yeah, there's this guy that does vintage trailers here in Ithaca, New York, and he replaces skin on my Bambi, but he's one of a kind of person. He doesn't,
Yeah.
you know, he just does vintage trailers. So he's gonna do the skin in the front.
Does he travel around to the trailer, or do you take it to him?
No, you have to take it to him.
Because there are
He's
people, I
literally
know there are
take-
people that you can travel around, these guys travel around and will do it on site for you.
The paintless dent repair people can actually glue on tabs and pull small dents out. But what he's talking about sounds like they're replacing the panels. So they have to drill all the rivets, make a new panel, rivet it on. And some of the older trailers, there's where the seam panels are, it's actually folded over. It's not a flat piece. It's not just laying aluminum together. So it takes special tools to do that.
Yeah, he was describing all the stuff he had to use and the special rivets he has to buy. So I just saw dollar bills going. I said, okay, I got it. Just, I want to get it done. I know it's going to cost me, but it's a lot cheaper than buying a new one. So I said, we'll get it fixed.
Yeah, that's for sure.
No. I mean, I don't know what you guys have priced new ones, but they're $100,000 now, a new Airstream.
Well, the small ones are started at about 50 and they go up to, then the trailers up to over 150.
Well, have you seen
You could buy a really nice new old vintage 50s or 60s for that, already done, and I'd rather have the older one. I think if you're paying that kind of money.
If for 150, you can probably buy two.
Yeah.
Just as a reference point, my one of our neighbors owns a kind of an upscale used car lot, and they have a dent removal guy that they call, and when they get a car in that's had some dent. So, you know, if you ever want something done like that, talk to the used car people and say, who do you recommend? And they have people who, that's all they do is go around to the used car lots. And I mean, we're not talking awful cars. We're talking, you know, nice cars, Porsches and Mercedes and stuff like that.
If you go on YouTube, there are really good dent removal people that actually have videos of, they'll take a Porsche, for example, that has a crease in it, and it's aluminum body, and they go in and they go step by step how they do it, and you can't ever tell it was there. I've taken some, you can buy the dentless, the glue and the things, and I've done some small dents and had pretty good luck. I tried doing a big dent in my last Argosy where I managed to crease it backing in the backyard against one of the 40 trees I have. And I pulled it out, but then after I touched up the paint on it, you could tell that it was actually, the metal had stretched and it was actually raised. It's very, very hard on aluminum, particularly any big dent, to not stretch the metal. But it's possible, and they can do, a really good one can do it where you cannot tell it's been done. Now, if you're polishing, it's probably going to have ripple there.
Yeah.
Back to the polishing. Has anybody had good success with sealers? I actually got talked into buying some of this stuff, the wovenized stuff, and it seemed to make, well, since mine was a real high polish, it created a little bit of a haze. Not bad, but just a touch of it, but it seemed to have protected it somewhat. Has anybody found something, a polish or a sealer that actually works?
You could probably try wax, like an automotive wax. That might work because you can polish it out with a rag just like you polish the aluminum. And that will leave I've done that on some metal before, and it'll leave a really thin coating and water will run off so dirt doesn't collect. That would be worth trying.
Okay.
Yeah, at one of the internationals, I think it was the one in Virginia, there was a fellow that was talking about, you know, cleaning your trailer and things like that. And he talked about wax. He used the car wax on it.
Yeah, it's like Carnauba car wax.
Yeah.
Or one of the synthetics. I polished the wheels on the Airstream wheels on my trailer, and I polished them out using buffing wheels. And then because they're down there getting dirty, I sprayed them with clear lacquer, and then they went kind of matte finished. So I wouldn't recommend the clear coat. But I would definitely look at the wax.
Yeah, yeah. This fellow recommended just car wax.
Yeah,
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks. I'll use the McGuire's or something like that.
Yeah.
to try to-
try sample it on a small area that you really can't see and see if you like it. If it looks good, then use it on the whole thing.
So now
And
I
when
have-
you're done, when you're done with that, you can come over and wax ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm gonna do the polishing and then I'll think about the waxing.
But there was a fellow that I think he used to, I haven't seen him in international, well, this year we didn't have international, but I didn't see him last year. He used to sell some kind of wax as a sealer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I forgot his name. I think he's from Pennsylvania, I believe. And he used to sell it. And he claimed that it was a sealer and it was a wax and all that. And
The key thing to that is it puts a coating on there that water runs off of, it beads up and runs off. And then, so dirt can't sit there. The water, it just runs off with the water.
Right.
you know. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other? Well, Damien, I don't think we have anything else, do we? As far as videos?
No, but I think this was a good first attempt, and I hope we keep it up. And
Yeah, we're gonna try to.
we're looking for topics for future talks. So if anybody has any,
Any-
let us know.
Any suggestions?
I still need to call Jim Polk and see if he's interested in doing something.
Oh, that'd be
It's on my-
good idea.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
appraisal insurance would be a very good one.
Because
Yeah.
particularly if we can get enough people to make it some exposure for him, because he is very active in the vineyard.